Perfect. Welcome everyone for joining Aparo's Nonprofit Bites and Insights. These are our free webinar and webinar series where we have speakers and experts from various industries to come share their knowledge and insights with nonprofit professionals like you. So a great example is today's webinar. This is being sponsored and presented by AvidXchange, so a big shout out to you guys. So we're going to be diving into a presentation on future-proofing your nonprofit operations, specifically your finance operations. So we're going to be talking about technology and automation and how we can use that to ensure your business continuity. Now, before I turn it over to them, we got to go through our housekeeping items. So very quickly, webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our webpage. All of you who are attending today, you'll actually receive a follow-up email from me. It'll give you that direct link so you don't have to look for it. And you'll also get the slide decks that we're going to be sharing with you today. Q&A box is available for you to drop in your questions. Chat box is available for you to drop in your comments. Feel to use that at any time during this presentation. Also, closed captioning is available, so feel free to show or hide your captions. So I know we have some few new people in the room. So if this is your first Aparo event, big welcome to you all. If you've joined us in the past, welcome back. I want to share a little bit about Aparo for those who you might be new to what we do. So we are a nonprofit. We're based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And what we do is we help nonprofits with their technology needs and challenges. So the way that we do that is we connect nonprofits with skilled volunteers and corporations in the community. Under advice, education, solutions, all of these together, we work with the nonprofits to support and help them so that they can amplify their impact in the community. So a little bit deeper into our services. So again, we have advice, education, and solutions. So about 95% of our new nonprofits, they typically go through our advice. And this is where you meet one-on-one with a tech therapist and just to go over your technology need and challenges. This is where you can also get one-on-one coaching, some guidance, just some advice, or if you want to get connected with a vetted vendor, all of those are available to you. And then under education, we do offer customized and tailored team trainings and workshops, and of course, these nonprofit bites and insights. And then we also, under solutions, we have our larger projects. So our more popular one is what we call our software selection projects. So if you're looking for a donor management system, a CRM, a case management system, an LMS, all those different tools, we know it can be a headache, it can be a lot to go through. So we connect you with a volunteer team to help make sure you're making the right decision for you and your nonprofit. And then finally, we do have an Aparo Mission Possible grant program that is open to the Triangle area of North Carolina. So if you are in the Raleigh-Durham area, you might be interested in getting $10,000 in consulting services to make your technology dream come true. I would highly recommend that you check it out, make sure you're qualified, see what those next steps are. I will be sharing the link with you all in the follow-up email, but registration will be closing sometime at the end of this month. So I would find some time to get that done this month. Lastly, these are the different ways to connect with us. If or when you decide you'd like to explore some of our services, the best way would be go to our website, fill out a request form, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible. You can also subscribe to our email list to stay updated on our events and programs. Or you can email me. I'm happy to support you any way that I can. And then finally, if you like what we do, please consider writing a short Google review. That is it for me. I'm going to stop sharing and go ahead and turn it over to Gary and Rhonda.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And Gary and I both are excited to be here today talking to everyone. Let's pull up our speaker slide so you'll know who you're talking to.
Yep, pulling up right now.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
All right.
So we should hopefully see the presentation. Go ahead.
We've got it, Gary. You're good to go.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I am really excited to be here today. Rhonda, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this webinar.
Thank you, Gary. My name is Rhonda Green. I'm a principal solutions consultant at AvidXchange. I've been at Avid for 11 years and actually have worn many hats during my time at Avid. But prior to joining AvidXchange, I was actually a longtime accountant / AP manager for many years. So I know firsthand, the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. And I'm so excited to be joined today by Gary Larson, who is the Director of Growth Readiness here at AvidXchange. And Gary, you started a nonprofit, is that correct?
Yeah, so I actually 9 years, I'm the founder and president of a nonprofit. And I've also been involved on the board level of many other nonprofits, all involved with foster care and adoption services. So a lot of the content that we're covering today speaks to my experience being a former foster kid and getting those services and needs of nonprofits, but also as a founder and as a president, trying to run that, in addition to working here at awesome AvidXchange. So you guys are gonna get a whole bunch of really cool info. I'm really excited about this. I really am.
Wonderful. Well, I know I am too. So thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. So let's talk about our agenda. We're going to cover the current state of nonprofits. We're going to talk a little bit about understanding the modern finance professional, 8 ways to future-proof your operations. We're going to take just a few minutes to talk about AvidXchange, and then at the end, we'll handle any Q&A that comes up.
The thing I would encourage is for the participants who are on the phone and on the line and watching, please feel free to just put your comments and feedback into the Q&A and into the chat. It's going to make the conversation much more rich. We'd love to get just that interaction there throughout this time.
Absolutely. So trends impacting nonprofit organizations. And so this is something that actually comes to us. Our source was McKinsey, but what we found out is that McKinsey reported that 82% of Americans conducted a digital payment in 2022, which was up from 78% the previous year. So donors expect the same convenience when donating to your organization. And that's absolutely true. I find it when I'm donating that it is so much easier to just be able to do it in a digital way as opposed to, the old school of writing a check and putting it in the mail. Nothing is secure anymore, particularly paper checks. Obviously cybersecurity remains a concern. So automated financial processes, they do so much to really greatly reduce that concern by eliminating paper, which reduces the security and fraud risks, which, as I mentioned, are associated with those things like paper checks.
I can tell you, as someone who's actively trying to get donors and sponsors and people to be able to donate to a cause, asking them to write a check and not being able to provide convenient ways for them to make payments, donations, support, those are barriers to entry. And anytime you add a barrier to entry, for someone to be able to get involved in your mission, it's going to reduce the amount of impact that you're going to have in your mission.
So true. And Gary, we don't, in our personal lives, I don't remember the last time I wrote a check, to be honest with you. And, businesses are getting further and further away from paper checks and moving to digital. So it makes perfect sense that, as you just said, people expect to be able to donate in a digital world.
Yeah. And let's make it easy for them. One of the things that, if you're in a nonprofit, I highly recommend you start leveraging QR codes at any of the events or spaces where they always have their phone and they can click, bring them right to your donate page, and it can go right there instantly. You're getting that reflexive response that you want as people tie into your mission.
Awesome. So some additional trends impacting nonprofit organizations. So more than ever, communities need nonprofits, and that is so true. And in a recent survey by the National Council of Nonprofits, 26% of responding organizations said that they actually have a waiting list for services more than a month long. And then budgets for outreach are increasing. Financial automation tools, can help organizations cut costs so that they can allocate more funds to be able to connect with those donors and hopefully reduce those wait times, Gary.
Yeah, and as I think about like the event costs, the cost to put on a golf outing, where you may have in the past been able to, hey, we could get this golf, course for $5,000. Well, now they're wanting extremely much more than that, which really cuts into your bottom line, your profit, your ability to then be able to pay your staff who are probably already underpaid. All of those things have impact. The fact that you have phenomenal services in your organization and people have to wait to be able to get those services, what we find is that if they're waiting, they're going to move on to someone else who can respond right away, or they decide not to either even engage in that type of organization or that mission.
Right. And that's definitely not what we want. And organizations need more time to be able to focus on the mission, and automating time. Really, those time consuming back office work, that load, and my gosh, I can attest to that, the hours spent, processing everything in a manual way. But really automation can free up employees to be able to spend more time on that mission critical work, like you said, Gary. And serving the community obviously is much more important than, punching a bunch of numbers in. And nonprofits are hit especially hard with workforce shortages, with 79% telling the National Council of Nonprofits that salary competition impacts their ability to hire.
Yeah. And it's a reality. It's a reality in the corporate space where you have millions upon millions of dollars of revenue to be able to competitively pay. But in the nonprofit space, it's a huge barrier, and I don't see it ever changing. So if you take, the compensation as one huge obstacle, and then we'll talk about it in a little bit more, the work that they do and the office, where it's not value add, it's not time well spent, it may be from the 1980s, the processes, it's going to be hard to retain that talent that you were barely able to keep in the first place.
Oh, you just honed in, Gary. I mean, we've found from other surveys that AvidXchange has taken in conjunction with the IOFM, for example, that, people now, young people coming into the job force, they don't want to push paper. They're looking for an opportunity to be able to work in an automated fashion and to be able to progress their career. And they don't see that happening if everything is 100% manual.
A classic example of that, and it's a real life example, is my wife recently took over as president of a restaurant group. And this restaurant group, when people would start day one, they would hand them like a 3-inch binder and they would say, read this, it's going to teach you everything you need to know about your job. And what we found is that the younger generation, many of them didn't even come back the second week. They didn't come back. They were like, I don't even want to, if this is what this is going to be like, I don't want to be a part of it. And they, it's like, there's got to be an app for this. Why are you having me read photocopies in a binder? And that's just the environment we're in, where it's paper free.
Wow. Now that speaks volumes, but it's definitely something that we hear all the time. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
So really now we're going to talk about understanding that modern finance professional and, AP professional as well as others are returning to the office, and they're working long hours. So things have kind of gotten back to normal, but hybrid work, 42% of respondents said that they work in a hybrid environment. And this was that IOFM and AvidXchange survey I was speaking about, followed by 39% in the office and 19% fully remote. And we're definitely seeing more of a hybrid. It's just everywhere now, which I'm actually very glad to see. But 31% of respondents said that they work 45 plus hours per week. But listen to this, Gary, level of automation, only 4% of respondents described their department as being fully automated, but 93% said they're at least partially automated.
Yeah, and I would put an asterisk behind that word partial, because that means they could have spreadsheets, or they could have complete like workflows with code, automating things. There's a whole gambit, because it's interesting as we talk to some of our prospects of what they think automation is, and some of them were like, well, yeah, we'll scan a document and it goes into a SharePoint site, and it's like, that's not automation.
That's not
Moving your paper into a digital format. It's not saving you any time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right. That's probably when I'm out talking to, other AP professionals, that's what I hear a lot as well. We are scanning our invoices in and being able to store them digitally. So we don't have the, 100 file cabinets that we used to have, but there's so much more that automation can bring to the table.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'm excited because I know that in the nonprofit space, you don't have as much flexibility to have fluff and waste, right? If you have employees or, even volunteers that are having to work in a physical location, a physical office, that now, by the way, you're having to pay a tremendous amount of rent on that physical location for them to come in and do work that they could have done probably more effectively from home or from a remote location, without having to pay for the infrastructure of the building, and maintain all the security and things like that. That's definitely the trend we're seeing in the workspace, and nonprofits more than others definitely need that support.
Absolutely, could not agree more. So, excuse me, AP professionals value workplace culture. So finance professionals said that the following were the most important items when considering a job opportunity. And of course, salary and benefits are probably always going to be the first one, but workplace culture that respects time off is the second one, with flexible work hours, then learning or skills development opportunities, and then mission or purpose of an organization. So when I see that workplace culture that respects time off, Gary, back in my day, really dating myself here, but I had to go into the office. There was no such thing as laptops. And even when there were, I had to go in before AP automation so that I could access all of my invoices and be able to cut checks. But now with automation, you can work literally from anywhere, and it cuts down the amount of time that they spend on these manual processes like data entry, and cutting checks. So really, it gives them the ability to take that much needed time off.
Yeah. And in the nonprofit space, I think about, if you were to say, hey, as an AP manager or somebody who works in the AP department, we have to have you work every other Friday or every other Monday, because we got to run payroll, and you physically have to be into the office to be able to do that. When they get phone calls from recruiters, or they see that their friends are actually able to have some work-life balance, it's going to be probably a little bit tough to retain that top talent. It's
exactly
the reality.
It is.
Yeah. We'll talk about like some of the learning and development, the growth opportunities. Well, I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. And so look at this, 1 in 5 AP pros with no automation feel extremely connected to the mission or purpose of their organization. Only 1 in 5. That speaks volumes. That's telling us that people are looking for automation. And again, it goes back to culture and that work-life balance.
Yeah, I can tell you, as someone who's gone through many board members, volunteers, and things like that, the number one most important competency, and I'd love to have some feedback in the chat or in the QA area. The number one thing I look for is someone's intimate connection to our mission. If they have that, then we can teach the other skills. I can show you how we, do this and do that, but that is paramount. If they're not connected to our mission and our purpose, they're not going to be putting forth discretionary effort. They're not going to be responding to emails from prospects or reaching out to potential donors or putting forth those things. So I think mission intimacy is absolutely paramount. And then everything else needs to be built from that.
Love that. So organization connectedness. So 81% of respondents of that same IOFM and Avid Exchange survey rated mission or purpose of organization as moderately to extremely important when considering a job opportunity. So that speaks to what we've been talking about. And a lack of tools correlates with decreased connection with the business. So if we look at some of these top line results, 39% of all respondents feel extremely connected, and 51 feel moderately connected, 10% not at all. And so again, impact of automation is that 1 in 5 AP pros with no automation feel extremely connected. It compared to 2 in 3 of those who are fully automated. It just gives them more time to be able to be connected.
Yeah, no, I love that, Rhonda. It gives them time to do what their heart and the mission is for, and whatever that mission is. If it's the animal rescue, they have more time doing that and working in the community and doing education series on that versus sitting in an office pushing paper around trying to find the missing invoice and responding to calls for our payments on some of their products. It's mission critical that you give your people the time to do the things that you hired them for, not some of this. That's the only way I can describe it.
Well,
no one gets excited.
I love it.
No one gets excited like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, guess what? I get to reconcile all of our GL ledger today. Yay. It's not something people put on their LinkedIn updates or snap pictures on their Instagram excited about, but they will share pictures about them out being participants in the event that their organization ties to their mission. And as I just think about it, before we go to the next slide, just think about what are the things that you can get your staff, your volunteers, your board, your AP people to do that they would be excited about enough to be able to post on social media about. It's going to be your mission. That's why they're there. It's not going to be some of this other work. And that's the importance of automation, is it reduces the amount of time they'd spend there and more time doing the things that fills their heart. Because we know, it's not going to be because they're making tons of money doing the work.
Yep, exactly. And again, 51% of AP pros are either very or extremely satisfied in their current role. And 51% is not a good number. I know, I managed teams for many, many years. And if I had a 51% response that said that they're very or extremely satisfied, I personally would think I have failed, because again, you want folks to be able to look forward to the work that they do. And if you give them, the ability to automate manual tasks and then be able to teach them other more strategic tasks, wow, that's what they want.
Yeah. Well, if you were to think about this almost, Rhonda, like a Rotten Tomatoes score, if your movie scored 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, it would be a horrible, horrible movie. Right. And that's a movie review. That's not even the important work that you guys are doing as nonprofits in your communities. The reviews and the ratings of a movie, not that important. The reviews and the rating of your mission are critical. 51%, we got to do better than that. We really do.
We do. Absolutely. So, again, some more, top line results. 51% of pros, again, very or extremely satisfied. 35% are moderately satisfied. 3% are not at all satisfied. And then with the impact of automation, 1% of those with largely or fully automated systems are not at all satisfied, only 1%. And that's compared to 10% when they're working in a completely manual environment. And then fully and largely automated pros are almost twice as likely to be very or extremely satisfied compared again to those manual pros. And having, done both. I started out when, of course, everything was manual. There was no alternative at the time. But then as the years progressed and automation came in, I actually implemented automation at a couple different companies. And so really, I remember my AP staff actually being so excited that they couldn't stand it, because they knew this gives them the opportunity, to be able to be more efficient. And so it was just the greatest feeling to be able to roll that out.
Yeah, I think about the fact that in nonprofits, many times, as Rhonda and you were talking about this, your finance person, your finance team, your individuals are probably doing other stuff as well. You probably don't have the flexibility to just say, oh, that's the only thing they do. They're probably hired to do, some of them are hired to do something completely different, but because you're running so lean from a staff perspective, they've pushed into this space to help out and stop the hemorrhaging there. But man, they have a master's degree in counseling, and I'd really prefer to have them start taking on some of this caseload. But we can't, because we're drowning in paper, right? So there's that individual is a very high retention risk. It's a top talent you got to keep, and you're not going to keep them by having them doing work that generally isn't either automated or tied directly to their work.
Oh, well said, Gary. And then 3 and 4, AP pros believe automation technology will have a positive impact on their career long term. And I think, 10 years ago, I think there was some more fear, I guess, from AP professionals is what I would say, or apprehension about automation, because they thought, oh gosh, it's going to take my job, right? That my company is going to implement automation and then I'll no longer have a job. And we do not see that at all. If anything, as I mentioned earlier, we see these AP professionals actually being able to do other tasks. I mean, I always like to ask people when they say, well, what will I do with these extra hours that I'm getting back? And I always ask, like, hey, when was the last time that you actually looked at your master vendor file? Have you cleaned it up? Have you really looked at your AP policy and procedure manual and thought, you know what, we really need to update this?
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that. Love it.
And then AP professionals, as I just said, they welcome automation technology. And as you can see here, 78% said that they do welcome modern technology and that it allows the team to work more efficiently, hear it day in and day out. And the impact of automation on a career, 71% believe automation technology would have an immediate positive impact on their current role, with 75% believing it would have a positive long-term impact on their career. Absolutely, they're learning new technology that they can, use in other areas.
Yeah, I found that generally in some of the audience may resonate with this and even raise their hand and have testimony, but I've experienced many times the people that want to be involved in nonprofits and they raise their hand to volunteer and lean in aren't necessarily the talent you want leading that. And generally the talent that is the career-driven individuals, they're harder to find, they're harder to retain, but oh my gosh, their impact to your organization will be amazing. But I just look at this chart and I just look at one of the other things that we haven't talked about, Rhonda, in previous webinars is if I have turnover, every organization is going to have turnover. If I have turnover and all of our processes are manual, what is the speed to proficiency? How long is it going to take that new hire to get up to speed versus if all of the work is automated and they just, they're doing the same, the output's the same, but man, their input is a fraction of that. It's just 10.
Oh my God. It's night and day difference, Gary, night and day. Oh gosh, I'm having flashbacks. I remember it so well. And you're right. It kind of goes back to your example of your wife's company having that huge manual. That's the thing I used to give people. It's like, look through this manual, and it would take them a whole week just to read through it. But with, automation, the tools are so easy to navigate. There's online tutorials. So it's just like you said, speed to efficiency is so much greater.
Yep. All right, so we have a poll. And while the poll is being pulled up, Anne Marie asked a question where they offered some hybrid for some of their positions because some of the work actually needs to be done in office because it has to do with remote banking. It's, she said, some of the employees may not have liked that. Is that not overly appealing? I think for the most part, most employees love having the flexibility to work in a hybrid environment. There are some roles where you physically do have to be, you can't be a custodian and not be able to be on site doing your job. But I love, I think the hybrid work environment, even outside of AP, is something we all need to consider.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
So this question here says, the most important item for your job outside of salary and benefits, select the items that you consider to be the most important when considering a job opportunity. So we'll give you guys just a few seconds to go ahead and select those. I was right. Mission and purpose is the most important.
Don't you love that? I love that so much. And that's what really gets people up and going into the office, even if it's their home office, every day is to feel a part of a bigger purpose. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. With 0% saying access to tools or technology.
And to me, that affirms what we're talking about, where people don't love coming in to do work on stuff. They want to do work that makes impact in the lives of others. The tools are mechanisms to be able to complete your mission. They shouldn't be your work. Right? And this resonates with me strongly, where I use the tool to do my mission.
Oh, love that, Gary.
Awesome. Great. Thank you guys for participating in that. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. And so these are just 8 ways to future-proof some of your nonprofit operations. These are fun.
They are. And so as we've been talking about, number 1 is embrace the hybrid work. Here at AvidXchange, Gary, we are a hybrid company. And so we come in the office 3 days a week, but we work remote on Mondays and Fridays. And just having that flexibility is incredible. But, again, I've never not been able to get everything done that I needed to at home. Because sometimes, when you're at home, you don't have coworkers just dropping by saying, hello, how are you? And so you can a lot of times get more done. But it's no secret that employees are beginning to expect more of this hybrid working arrangements. And companies are actually now really starting, and it's all, I think, because of the pandemic, companies are starting to view it as a cost-cutting opportunity, especially in this current economic environment.
Yeah, I mean, space, at least in Charlotte here, trying to find office space that's affordable for a nonprofit that's not in a horrible area where you have to worry about your employees and your volunteers' safety. You can get cheap place, but it's not where you're going to want to hang your sign. That's how it is in all the areas. And I want an office space that represents my mission, my values, maybe also ties into, some of the people we're serving. And I want to be able to afford that and be able to hire and retain good talent. Generally, if you can negotiate on one, let's find, a way to reduce our footprint in the office, maybe have a much smaller office, and then I have more budget and runway to be able to bring in more talent.
Exactly. Because Gary, here, this survey said that 82% of CFOs said that hybrid work is a more affordable business model. That's 82%. So it's, again, I think maybe some of us thought, 3 years ago that this hybrid or remote work was just going to be for this short period of time during the pandemic, but it is here to stay.
It is. And it's been an adjustment for a lot of us as we've coming back into the office, where we're like, man, we're really loud. You guys are loud. It's like, and that used to be the norm. It's like going back onto the airport. Now you're sitting next to somebody and you're like, ew, you're touching me, and it's the new norm. We're trying to get back to that. So prioritizing health over hustle. This is, I would say, absolutely critical in the future of where I remember, and if we just think about it, a few years ago, let's say 5 years ago, if you had the sniffles, you had a runny nose, you didn't really feel well, you still came into the office. You still sent your kids to school. Now, like anything, it's like I'm working from home because you're much more conscientious of your health, not only your physical health, but mental health. That phrase, mental health, I would be willing to bet if we were to survey how many times the word mental health is used in the last several years, the trend is just going up exponentially. I just had a conversation with some of our coworkers and teammates about managing mental health. So all of that is absolutely critical in this whole economic environment.
Completely agree. And being able to do this really allows for, for instance, on the AP side, it gives them the ability to get things done, more efficiently, which to me equals quicker, right? So, we used to spend hours and hours entering in invoices, and some days, I've heard people tell me that they've literally spent all 8 hours of a workday doing a check run. But with automation, you're able to, do things like making sure the invoices are getting paid on time and that you're not missing any early payment discounts, which is critical. And so just again, automation can just help in so many ways. And I don't think that we always think about it until a webinar like this comes up, because again, having been there, done that, it absolutely makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I'd be willing to bet that there are people on the webinar today that have experienced someone putting in their 2-week notice and were just like came out of nowhere for like, why are they leaving? And it's like, well,
yes.
it's like, why are they leaving? And it's like, part of it is they need their health over hustle. They're just burned out.
That's right.
And unfortunately, in nonprofits, the work, as we know, continues to get longer, the services, the stretch. So how do we make sure that that person can work effectively without having to work 40, 60, 80 hours a week?
Absolutely. And look at this, Gary, 22%
Wow.
AP pros used their full PTO balance last year. 22%. That is crazy. Hopefully they were able to roll this over and that they didn't just lose it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but a part of that comes from the individuals behind there would say, I want to use my PTO, but I can't get away because my clients, my services are needed. And
right. And my work is here in the office too.
Yes. And I think about individuals in the nonprofit, many of them are servant leaders and they're servant heart, and they will serve others at the expense of themselves. And that's what this number shows me, is that they're feeding others and putting the air mask on other people when they actually need to be taking in some oxygen themselves.
That's right. And then with the next slide, you'll see that with automation, the impact of automation, 83% of those individuals with fully automated systems agree or strongly agree that they have a healthy work-life balance. And that's compared to 45% of those with manual systems. I mean, here you can see, 24% of folks took between 75 and 99%, 35% took less than half. But with automation, it gives you at least the ability to work remote, where traditionally, the finance team, AP in particular, was never seen as a department that could work remote because of all the paper.
Yeah.
All that changes with automation.
Well, and it's not only the paper, it's also the security and the risk and fraud and all of those things you have to worry about. It's like, they have to be on site and we have to keep watch of them to make sure they don't do things incorrectly. And companies like AvidXchange can help solve for both.
For sure.
Oh, got another poll. All right, so what percentage of your PTO did you use last year?
What percent did you use, Gary?
Hosts and panelists cannot vote. Well, so, all right, so I probably used like 90+% of it, but I have some old carryover that is the part of that, that was like old carryover that you can continue to carry over and over. And I haven't touched that. That's like my sacred, like I'm going to splurge one day, but my accrued PTO each year, I used almost all.
Exactly. And I did too, because, there were plenty of years that I did not take even, half of mine. And, Gary, I actually care for my 90-year-old father. He lives with me. And so I have to have the ability to be able to, take him to appointments and to be with him when he's not feeling well and things like that. So huge.
Awesome.
Here's the results.
Yeah, it looks like 27% was 50% or less. And then the remaining 70, whatever, I'm not good at math, percent. You don't want me doing your finance, by the way, if that's, I'm not your finance guy, but it's cool to see a couple people were able to take it all, and some,
Yep.
and the other majority were able to take, at least half, if not
Right.
more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's a person that didn't get any PTO, which makes my heart sad. And it's like, you need to take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
All right. So do more with less. So I love this slide just because we talked about it a little bit, and I don't want to beat it up too much. But when you think about the pressure that companies are under, and my wife said this to her team recently and to her leadership team, she said, we can't work any harder. We can't. There are so many people that are missing games with their kids, not having date night with their plus ones. There's so much out of balance. We can't ask you guys to work harder. So what are the ways that we're going to do stuff smarter?
Oh, so true. And, nowadays, things like OCR technology and AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, they have changed the game with, AP and even AR. But on the AP side, being able to capture invoice details so that it saves a person from having to manually enter all of that in. And it really is all about doing more with less. And accuracy is key when you're dealing with invoices and payments. It's easily when you've got a person, we're all only human, who maybe transposes a number. And so therefore a duplicate invoice might get through, by accident, and, it's paid. So accuracy is a huge deal with automation, being able to capture all of that information and being able to, match invoices and be able to put any supporting documents that you have, right there on the invoice record, electronically, digitally. So, but if we look here, Gary, how are companies creating efficiencies? 61% of respondents experienced layoffs in 2022. And then 68% of respondents said that technology helped mitigate that burnout. So there you go.
Well, and when I think about that 61% layoff, when that person experiences a layoff, many times the remaining individuals in that organization have to get the work done. So now I'm being asked to do even more, but I'm not getting that person's salary that left. I'm still asked to be able to do more, but the technology and automating these things will help reduce, you're right, that burnout. It's right there in the numbers.
Yep. And despite current economic uncertainty, including layoffs and the possible recession, unemployment rate and the labor market remains strong, and AP pros appear to be optimistic. So 78% of AP pros told us that they're not worried about a layoff in their department this year, and only 14% said that their department experienced any layoffs last year. And then, 43% said that they're doing nothing to prepare for layoffs. And 36% are learning new skills, 32% are updating their resumes. But, that's what AP pros are doing. And again, being able to say on a resume that you've worked, with technology and with an AP automation system is critical.
Yeah. And I think about you have to have AP departments, but it doesn't mean they have to be inefficient and drowning under paper and still doing things in triplicate, right?
That's right.
So I think it's really important that, yes, an AP department, I think they're highly confident that their jobs are going to be around for a while, but what those jobs look like and the skills that are being needed and the resources and the tools is continuously shifting.
That's right. Exactly. And you'll see here, you're able to reduce the burden of manual and repetitive tasks. And so we've already talked about, the manual data entry will go away greatly, and the accuracy will greatly improve. But, relying on a manual system is just bound to result in headaches, right? So as I mentioned, human error and all that time consuming legwork really affects, so many things in an organization, including that burnout that we've been talking about. But with automation, you're able to take on things to learn new tasks. And if that's things, as I mentioned, like cleaning up your master vendor file, or maybe AP even steps in and helps with some contract negotiation or price discussion. So people are able to do a lot more now, and really it just results in a better overall experience, not only for that individual but for the organization.
Had I thought about it before, I would have had a poll question for the audience to ask: what percentage of your job is critical work that is value added versus administrative things that are not, that are either manual or repetitive? I'd be willing to bet it's a pretty high percentage.
I agree. And then number 5, offers skills development opportunities. We've said a lot about this. Controllers say they spend 31% of their time, working as a strategist, but they'd like that number to be closer to like 50% by reducing the amount of time that they even have to spend on traditional tasks. And automation can drive 70 to 80% time savings for a finance staff. And that's according to Goldman Sachs, but 70 to 80%. It's true.
Well, my sister-in-law is a controller who used to work in Michigan for the county government. And she didn't realize what was out there until she just recently switched and went to a company in Tennessee. And she's texting me and she goes, "Oh my God, Gary, there's an app. Did you know there was a thing called Salesforce? Like we have things called workflows where I don't have to go into an Excel spreadsheet and type things." She's like breathing air she's never breathed before. And she feels like being able to do that has now enabled her to take some training and skill development instead of just being burdened down with manual reconciliation. It's just been like awesome to see that light in her. And I would tell you that she is going to stay with that company. I can't see her ever leaving because they've really invested in providing the right level of technology and development opportunity for her to feel like she can grow.
Love that so much. Yep. And, we've already been talking about this, providing more strategic and satisfying work. I mean, it just goes without saying. But I would just add that, you definitely, from an AP perspective and internal controls, you've got to set forth clear and measurable goals, and then you can rank them, in order of prioritization, just to make sure that, the tasks are still getting done. And we all know there still has to be lots of controls around a finance process, but technology can actually help transform the role of a finance professional, because it really does allow you to go from, doing just, data entry to be able to, actually do data analysis.
Yeah. Well, and Anne Marie just submitted a question just a couple of minutes ago asking, if we'll be able to get some examples of tools and technology for automation and opportunities for growth in her role. She's trying to figure out some ways to do APAR and fundraising. So she's got multiple hats, as many individuals are. I would love to connect with you, Anne, offline and give you some of my ideas, experiences outside of AvidXchange that might also be helpful. But I think, depending on what you're looking for, we might be able to, as an organization, answer some of those questions within AvidXchange as well.
That's right. And here we see, AP professionals with automation tools are more likely to be more strategic contributors. So AP pros with fully automated systems are 11 times more likely to work on strategic initiatives. We've said this a lot, very, very important. So I think we're going to move on to another poll question, Gary.
Yep. So how often do you work on strategic initiatives for your company or organization? Never, a few times a year, monthly, weekly, and daily? Hopefully no one says never.
I hope not. That's boring.
Yeah.
People want to be
Hopefully the
challenged.
person that says never is not the same person that had 0 PTO last year.
Exactly.
Because I need to get your resume and have you come work for Avid Exchange. Oh, we got one that's never.
Oh, no. But we've got 46% that's monthly, so that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, we got 15% that's daily, Gary.
That's good. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's and depending on your role will depend on, how often you get to do those things. But generally, even individual contributors at every level want to feel like they're involved somewhere in helping shift the organization's mission and the direction.
That's right.
Even if the row that their oar that they're rowing with is small, they still want to feel like they have one in the water.
Of course, they want to make a difference and impact.
Yep, awesome. All right, so, and I think the last one is empower staff with reporting tools. And again, like my sister-in-law who moved from one company to another was like, oh my gosh, we have these dashboards and they have these dynamic charts. And if I click on this, it does that. And she's like, and I'm able to tell so much more stories and be able to visualize our numbers in different ways and help make better decisions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Melissa, you need to come and just speak at one of our webinars about the importance of technology in the finance space.
Exactly. We at Avid Exchange, we just released, at the beginning of the year, what's called Avid Analytics, and it gives, folks the ability to really track their spend and their payables and who are their top vendors and how long is it taking me to pay these invoices? Am I missing any discounts? And that is critical. It gives you the information you need to really be able to manage your payables just at your fingertips. It's huge. And I think just for the sake of time, Gary, I think we may just skip on down to maybe number 35 about, automation. 94% of AP pros would use a tool to automate the most repetitive parts of their jobs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Critical. And then I think this might be is this our last poll, Gary? Maybe not. Next to last.
All right. So how would you describe your finances department of automation? Are you fully automated with no manual tasks, or all the way down the other line is manual and completely paper-based?
I hope that we've got at least partially automated for everyone. I hope.
Well, if not, then they're a perfect prospect to get a hold
That's
of
right.
after the call, right? Because we can
Well,
help produce that. Yeah.
That's right. Largely automated, but look at that, Gary. The 55% have partial automation, which is awesome. I always applaud people that have started that journey, but really to finish it out is just, again, so impactful.
It is. Yep. All right.
So,
do you want to go through Avid Exchange?
Absolutely. I'll do this really quickly so that we can have time for any last questions. But Avid Exchange, we've been around since 2000. So we've been around 23 years. We've got 1,600 plus employees with 5 offices across the country, 8,800 customers. So we talk to, AP and finance professionals every day, CFOs, controllers, AP managers. We actually integrate with over 225 accounting systems, with some of those being API integrations. Our Avid Pay network is huge. It's got over 965,000 suppliers and that are just putting it through transactions daily across the network. We, process $215 billion in spend under management in 2022. And as you can see here, we've won some awards and we've been recognized as a leading B2B payment network in the middle market.
Yeah.
And then here, again, industry-leading AP automation and payment services. We can help you from invoice capture all the way through payment. we can help you. Again, largest network of unique suppliers. We have deep domain expertise and strategic partnership with industry leaders like MasterCard and Wise. And again, those 225 integrations, which are, you know, highly integrated into your ERP systems. So where your ERP system just continues to be your system of record, where the AvidXchange software is just enhancing your experience. And then just a few things that automation can do. Obviously, we're going to increase that efficiency. We're going to reduce cost. You know, we actually can prepare an ROI and provide that to you during, you know, a demonstration so that you can see real time the cost in dollars and cents that you can save. We're going to improve your visibility. Again, you're able to still do your work from anywhere. As long as you have access to the internet, you can have a connection, you can approve invoices, you can approve payments, you can, you know, your visibility is there for everything. You're maintaining all of your controls. So all of the internal controls you have in place today, we're just going to set that up, and now they're going to be controls in an automated fashion, and really enhances the controls that they have. And this is a big one, being able to scale seamlessly. I've talked to so many people after they have implemented automation that have told me, you know what, we've grown our business 20, 30, 50%, and we did not need to add additional AP headcount. Yep. And then you mentioned this earlier, Gary, that it reduces financial and reputational risk with e-payment options. I mean, we can really help with that fraud that, you know, again, that a lot of people are experiencing with their payments, and we can certainly help there. And the last two slides here are two of my favorite. It talks about the before and after automation. And as you can see here, the before slide, you've got multiple steps that you have to go through from, you know, all the way through capturing those invoices, getting them in, opening the mail, getting out that trusty old letter opener, coding them, entering them in, and then cutting checks. There's still so many, you know, anywhere from 60 to 80% of all B2B payments are still made with paper checks. And again, just unfortunately are so prone to fraud. So you've got all of these huge, you know, 12-step process. And after automation, everywhere that you see the X, that is a service or, you know, something, software that we can help you with. So we're going to take off that, you know, opening the mail and routing the invoices around, and, you know, doing things like cutting those checks, spending hours on a check run. So basically, we've taken those 12 steps and just boiled them down to 3 steps. And really, those 3 steps that remain are the 3 most important business decisions that, you know, your company will make. And that's, how do I code the invoice? When is it time to pay the invoice? I need to select it, and approving those invoices and payments. But we have tools, even on the coding side, that can help you with coding, where we call it smart coding. It can remember how an invoice was coded previously. You can set default GL codes. The automated workflow is so critical. It gives you the ability to see, you know, real time where an invoice is in the approval process. So taking it from 12 steps down to 3. Gary, do you want to?
Yeah, I can go ahead and wrap this up. So the last thing is, I'd like to open up the group. I know we're running close on time, but I'd like to open up the Q&A and the last poll question. The last poll question is, would you like to hear from AvidXchange? We'd love to schedule a demo with you, and we'll even give you a $100 MasterCard gift card just for sitting through and talking with us. That's awesome. We would love to have that conversation and see if AvidXchange could help you and your nonprofit. And then you could select the other 2 as well, but I would select the first one. Are there any open questions in the Q&A area? Doesn't look like I see any.
There's a couple questions that we can maybe go over while other people are dropping in their questions. But the first question is, I know automation is important, but how do I gain buy-in from stakeholders?
Rhonda.
I love this one because, again, there's so much information out there now that you can, really just Google on automation. But getting a demonstration and being able to get that ROI to take to management and show them, but also talking to peers, you would be amazed at how many of your peers are already using an automation tool, and being able to take all of the information that you've kind of put together using these resources really makes a big difference when you take it up the management chain.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Rhonda, the fact that we could work with you and actually provide you a tangible number to say, this is the savings that we're going to be able to provide your organization. And that really appeals to upper leadership. The people who are actually doing the work are going to say, well, that's cool, but that gives me time back to spend more time with my new husband, right? So it's a win-win. We'd love to have that conversation and the toughest questions from them.
Great. Well, thank you. We are at time. I do want to take a moment and thank you, Gary and Rhonda, for an amazing presentation, for putting this together and leading this conversation. Definitely learned a lot. Thank you, Kimberly, for supporting this webinar and helping us put all this together. Big shout out to AvidXchange again for sponsoring this event. And then to our audience, thank you for attending. You do expect that follow-up email from me. It'll include that link to the recording as well as a slide deck. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me. I'll be happy to pass them along and get those answered.
Awesome.
Other than that, thank you so much for your time and have a good rest of the day.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.